11,800 feet beneath the Southern Ocean. Crushing pressure, eternal darkness, and something waiting. This is a sponge, a carnivorous sponge. Most people think sponges are plants. They're not. Sponges are animals. Simple ones, ancient ones. They've been filtering the oceans for over 600 million years. Here's how they work. The sponge's body is riddled with tiny pores called ostia. Water flows in, passes through chambers lined with specialized cells, choanocytes. These cells have whip-like flagella that beat constantly, creating current. As water flows past, the choanocytes filter out microscopic food, bacteria, phytoplankton, bits of organic matter, tiny particles suspended in seawater. A single sponge the size of a gallon jug can filter 20,000 times its own volume daily. That's over 2,000 gallons of water. But here's the key. Sponges are passive feeders. They don't hunt, they don't chase, they don't capture. They wait. Water brings food to them. It's slow, inefficient, but in nutrient-rich, shallow waters, it works. Until it doesn't. The ocean has zones. Sunlit surface, 0 to 200 meters. Life everywhere. Twilight zone, 200 to 1,000 meters. Light fading. Midnight zone, 1,000 to 4,000 meters. Total darkness begins. The abyss, 4,000 to 6,000 meters. This is where the death ball lives. Down here, the rules change. Challenge 1. Pressure. At 3,600 meters, pressure is 360 atmospheres. 360 times surface pressure. Enough to crush a submarine. But sponges don't have air spaces. No lungs, no rigid structure. They're mostly water. Pressure doesn't bother them. Challenge 2. Temperature. The deep ocean hovers around 2 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. Metabolism slows. Everything moves in slow motion. Energy is precious. Challenge 3. Food. Remember that calculation? A sponge filters 2,000 gallons daily in shallow water? In the abyss, there's almost nothing to filter. No sunlight means no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis means no phytoplankton. No phytoplankton means no food chain. The only food comes from above. Marine snow. Dead organisms drifting down from sunlit waters. It takes weeks to fall. Decomposes along the way. By the time it reaches the abyss, most organic matter is gone. A cubic meter of surface water contains millions of food particles. A cubic meter of abyssal water? Maybe dozens. So how does a filter feeder survive where there's almost nothing to filter? It stops filtering and starts hunting. 1995. Mediterranean coast off La Ciotat, France. Scientists exploring a submarine cave find something impossible. A sponge with no pores, no water flow, no filtering apparatus, and covering its surface, hooked spicules, tiny glass needles, barbed, sticky. This sponge wasn't filtering food, it was catching it. Asbestopluma hypogea, the first confirmed carnivorous sponge. For centuries, we'd been classifying sponges by their skeletons, the microscopic structures, spicules, that give them shape. But we'd never asked, Why do some have hooks? Because they're traps. Once scientists knew what to look for, they found more. 2002, Chondrocladia species in the Pacific. 2012, the harp sponge off California, shaped like a lyre, covered in Velcro-like hooks. 2015, the ping-pong tree sponge in the Arctic. All in deep water, all carnivorous, all from the family Cladorhisidae. They evolved independently, multiple times. Because at certain depths, in certain conditions, hunting isn't just an advantage, it's the only way to survive. October 2025. The research vessel Falkor 2 fights through Southern Ocean swells. Destination? The South Sandwich Islands, one of the most remote places on Earth. So remote that during the expedition, the closest humans were aboard the International Space Station. The team deploys ROV Sebastian, a remotely operated vehicle capable of diving to 4,500 meters. It descends through darkness, past 1,000 meters, past 2,000, past 3,000, 3,601 meters. The trench. North dive site east of Montague Island. The seafloor here is mud, soft sediment, volcanic, shaped by underwater eruptions, but not lifeless. Black corals, iridescent scale worms, zombie worms feeding on whale bones. And then, this. Dr. Michelle Taylor, head of science at Ocean Census, sees it on the monitors. What is that? Spherical, about the size of a grapefruit. Multiple arms radiating outward, each arm ending in a translucent ball. And covering every surface, hooks. Thousands of them. Microscopic, glass-like, barbed, like Velcro, like fish hooks, like death. Chondrocladia sp. nov. A new species. The death ball sponge. Let's understand what we're looking at. The death ball has no pores, no internal chambers, no aquiferous system, the canal network that defines a sponge. Instead, it has a central body anchored to the sea floor. From that body, multiple stolons, horizontal branches, radiate outward. From those stolons, vertical branches rise up, and at the end of each branch, a terminal ball. These balls are inflatable, filled with fluid. They can expand or contract slightly. Inside each ball, spermatophores, packets of sperm for reproduction. But their outer surface is covered in filaments, tiny projections, hair-like, each one tipped with anchorate isocele. Anchorate isocele is scientific terminology for hooked, barbed, sticky. They're spicules, glass needles made of silica, but shaped like grappling hooks. Some have 2 prongs, some 3, all curve backward. Easy to enter, impossible to escape. Imagine Velcro, but made of glass and alive. That's what touching this sponge feels like, if you're a copepod. Down here, there are currents. Slow, gentle, but constant. An amphipod, a small shrimp-like crustacean, searches for food. At 3,600 meters deep, food is scarce, so amphipods swim, crawl, drift, hoping to find detritus, bacteria, anything. The current carries it toward the death ball. In total darkness, the amphipod doesn't see the sponge. It has no warning. Its antenna brushes a terminal ball. The hooks engage instantly. The amphipod tries to pull away, but that action drives the hooks deeper. It thrashes, kicks, attempts to swim free. Every movement tangles it further. More filaments make contact. More hooks engage. The struggle lasts seconds. Then, stillness. Once captured, prey is held by the barbed spicules, tiny hooked structures that Velcro-like ensnare passing organisms, which the sponge subsequently envelops in a membrane for slow digestion. The hooks don't inject venom. They don't need to. The amphipod is physically trapped, unable to move, unable to escape. Now, the sponge begins to feed. The death ball has no mouth, no stomach, no gut. So how does it eat? Specialized cells in the sponge, pinacocytes, begin moving. They creep across the surface toward the trapped prey. Slowly, they form a thin membrane, layer by layer, cell by cell. The membrane envelops the amphipod, creating a temporary external stomach. Now, enzymes are released. Proteases, lipases, digestive chemicals. They seep into the prey, break down tissues. Muscle becomes amino acids. Chitin becomes sugars. This takes hours, sometimes days. As prey dissolves, nutrients are absorbed directly through the membrane into amoebocytes, mobile cells that distribute food throughout the sponge's body. Eventually, only the indigestible shell remains. The hooks release. The current carries it away. One amphipod might provide enough energy for a week, maybe more. In the abyss, where food arrives once a month, if you're lucky, this is survival. Filter feeding would yield nothing, but active predation, even slow, patient predation, that works. The Falcor 2 expedition collected nearly 2,000 specimens across 14 animal groups. At the Southern Ocean Species Discovery Workshop in Punta Arenas, Chile, international experts verified 30 new species, the death ball sponge among them. The Southern Ocean remains profoundly undersampled, said Dr. Michelle Taylor. To date, we've only assessed under 30% of the samples collected from this expedition, so confirming 30 new species already shows how much biodiversity is still undocumented. Scientists estimate 1 to 2 million marine species exist. We've formally identified only 240,000. That's 10%, which means 90% of ocean life is unknown, undocumented, unnamed, unstudied. And we're losing species before we even discover them. Climate change, overfishing, deep-sea mining. This is why expeditions like this matter, not just to catalog weird creatures, but to understand how life adapts, how ecosystems function, what resilience looks like. And sometimes those answers come from the strangest places. Europa, Jupiter's fourth largest moon, covered in ice kilometers thick. But beneath that ice, a global ocean. Liquid water, in contact with a rocky sea floor. No sunlight penetrates the ice. The ocean is dark, cold, under immense pressure from the ice above. Sound familiar? Europa's ocean and Earth's deep sea share critical features. Total darkness, crushing pressure, near freezing temperatures. No photosynthesis possible. So if life exists in Europa's ocean, what would it eat? On Earth's deep sea floor, life clusters around hydrothermal vents, volcanic vents that spew superheated, chemical-rich water. Chemosynthetic bacteria use those chemicals as energy, and an entire ecosystem builds around them. Europa has a rocky sea floor, tidal heating from Jupiter, conditions that could create hydrothermal vents. If vents exist on Europa, chemosynthetic life could exist. And if that exists, predators could exist. Maybe even something like Chondrocladia. Carnivorous sponges aren't just weird biology. They're proof that life finds ways to thrive in conditions we thought were impossible. Enceladus, another icy moon. Subsurface ocean confirmed. Geysers shooting water into space. If Earth's deep ocean teaches us anything, it's this. Where there's liquid water, even in total darkness, even under crushing pressure, even with almost no food, life doesn't just survive, it innovates. It evolves. Predators, scavengers, symbiotic partnerships. The death ball sponge isn't an evolutionary mistake. It's a solution. The Ocean Census has a goal. Find 100,000 new ocean species. This expedition alone found armored iridescent scale worms, new species of sea stars spanning 3 families, black corals, sea pens that look like feathers, and the first confirmed footage of a juvenile colossal squid, a creature so elusive we've only seen adults dead or dying. The second part of the expedition explored newly exposed seafloor. When iceberg A84 calved from the George VI ice shelf in January 2025, it revealed seabed sealed beneath 150 meters of ice for centuries. The first humans to see this environment, what did they find? They're still analyzing samples, but already more new species. The Southern Ocean is one of Earth's last frontiers, further from land than the International Space Station is from Earth, colder than anywhere humans live, under ice, in darkness, at depths that would crush us. And it's full of life. Weird life, alien life, life that rewrites the rules. The carnivorous sponge shouldn't work. A passive filter feeder transforming into an active predator violates everything we know about sponge biology. No aquiferous system, no choanocytes, no water pumping, just hooks, patience, and prey too small to fight back. Yet it thrives. For millions of years, Chondrocladia has been hunting in the abyss, waiting in darkness for currents to bring food. Evolution doesn't care about rules. It cares about survival. And in the deep ocean, where every calorie is a matter of life or death, even a mistake can become a masterpiece. The next time someone tells you sponges are boring, show them this. A carnivorous sponge covered in microscopic death, hunting in total darkness, 11,800 feet beneath a frozen ocean. Life doesn't follow our rules. It writes its own, in the most extreme environments imaginable. And every time we descend into the abyss, we find proof. Earth's oceans are more alien than we thought, more diverse, more adaptive, more resilient. Which means other oceans, on Europa, on Enceladus, on worlds we haven't discovered yet, might be full of life we can't even imagine. The death ball sponge is waiting. It's been waiting for millions of years, and it will wait millions more. Because in the abyss, patience isn't a virtue, it's survival. This is Cosmic Canvas, where life's strangest stories are still unfolding. The abyss is not empty, it's patient, and it's full of answers we haven't learned how to ask. Until next time, remember, the stranger the life, the stronger the lesson.